The bank thought it had gotten rid of a worthless piece of land. A dusty, forgotten field in the middle of nowhere. No buildings. No crops. No buyers. For years, it had sat on the bank's books like a bad investment nobody wanted. So when an old rancher offered just $900 for it, the bank practically celebrated. They signed the papers, took the money, and laughed as the old man drove away. But less than 2 years later, those same bank executives would sit frozen in disbelief. Because the land they had sold for less than the price of a used lawn mower was suddenly worth over $1 billion. And the man who bought it knew something they never bothered to find out. In the small town of Red Creek, Texas, everyone knew 82-year-old Walter Hayes. Walter wasn't rich. His pickup truck was older than most of the town's police officers. His ranch house leaned slightly to one side. And his boots had been repaired so many times that nobody remembered their original color. But Walter possessed something more valuable than money. Patience. And knowledge. For more than 60 years, he had worked the same stretch of land his father and grandfather had worked before him. He knew every hill. Every creek. Every rock. Every story hidden beneath the soil. When Walter heard that First Western Bank had acquired a neglected field through foreclosure, he became interested immediately. The field sat directly beside his ranch. To everyone else, it looked useless. Dry grass covered most of it. Nothing grew there except weeds. Local farmers avoided it. Developers ignored it. Even cattle preferred grazing elsewhere. The bank had spent 3 years trying to sell it. Nobody wanted it. One morning, Walter drove into town and walked into the bank. The young loan officer behind the desk barely looked up. "Can I help you?" he asked. Walter removed his hat. "I'd like to buy that old Turner field." The employee smirked. "That place? Why?" Walter smiled. "Because I like it." The banker exchanged amused glances with a coworker. After a few minutes of checking records, he returned. "We'll sell it for $900. Walter nodded immediately. "I'll take it." The employee looked surprised. "You're not even going to negotiate?" "Nope." Walter pulled cash from an envelope and placed it on the desk. The deal was completed that same afternoon. As Walter left, several employees joked that the old rancher had just bought the most worthless land in the county. Walter simply tipped his hat and walked away. What nobody knew was that Walter had spent decades listening to stories from his father. Stories about unusual rock formations. Stories about strange mineral deposits. Stories about surveyors who visited the area in the 1940s. Most people dismissed those stories as old ranch legends. Walter never did. Over the years, he quietly collected maps. Old geological reports. Historical records. Newspaper clippings. Boxes full of information nobody else cared about. When he bought the field, he wasn't gambling. He was confirming a suspicion he had carried for nearly 40 years. Months passed. Nothing happened. The bank forgot about Walter. The town forgot about the field. Life continued as normal. Then one day, several white trucks appeared on the property. Workers unloaded equipment. Survey markers appeared everywhere. Strange machines began taking measurements. People started asking questions. Walter gave no answers. Weeks later, the trucks returned. Then came more experts. Then more testing. Rumors spread rapidly through town. Some people thought Walter had discovered water. Others believed he planned to build a solar farm. Nobody knew the truth. Not even the bank. Then came the announcement. A major energy company revealed that extensive surveys had identified one of the largest rare earth mineral deposits discovered in decades. The deposit stretched directly beneath Walter's field. The estimated value exceeded $1 billion. The news exploded across the state. Reporters arrived. Investors flooded the town. Property values skyrocketed overnight. And inside First Western Bank, panic began. Executives couldn't believe what they were hearing. Surely there had been some mistake. They reviewed the sale documents again and again. Everything was legal. Everything was final. The field belonged to Walter Hayes. Every inch of it. Including everything beneath it. The bank's president drove personally to Walter's ranch. He arrived in a luxury SUV worth more than Walter's house. Walter was sitting on his porch drinking coffee. The banker forced a smile. "Mr. Hayes, I'd like to discuss that land transaction." Walter nodded. "Go ahead." The executive cleared his throat. "The bank believes important information may not have been disclosed." Walter raised an eyebrow. "What information?" "The mineral deposits." Walter sipped his coffee. "I didn't know there were mineral deposits when I bought it." The banker leaned forward. "You expect me to believe that?" Walter smiled. "I expected there might be something valuable there." The executive's face tightened. "But you suspected." "Sure." Walter pointed toward the horizon. "I also suspected there might be deer in those woods. Doesn't mean I owned them." The banker had no response. Over the following months, lawyers searched desperately for a way to reverse the sale. They found none. The bank had conducted its own inspections. Its own evaluations. Its own due diligence. Or rather, it had failed to conduct proper due diligence. Nobody had bothered to investigate the property's geological history. Nobody had reviewed older records. Nobody had looked beyond the surface. The bank's mistake wasn't being unlucky. Its mistake was being careless. A judge later summarized the situation perfectly. The seller had every opportunity to evaluate its own property. Failure to do so is not fraud. The case ended there. As news spread, reporters repeatedly asked Walter the same question. "How did you know?" Walter always gave a similar answer. "I listened." People laughed. But he was serious. While others chased quick profits, Walter spent decades paying attention. While others ignored history, he studied it. While others saw weeds and dirt, he saw clues. The billion-dollar discovery wasn't luck. It was patience meeting opportunity. The energy company eventually signed an agreement that guaranteed Walter and his family wealth beyond anything they had ever imagined. Yet surprisingly, very little changed. Walter repaired his old ranch house. He helped local schools. He funded scholarships. He donated equipment to volunteer firefighters. He quietly paid medical bills for families struggling in the community. And every morning, he still drank coffee on the same porch. Using the same worn mug. Watching the same sunrise. 1 year later, a reporter asked him what lesson people should learn from his story. Walter looked across the field that had changed his life. Then he smiled. Most people only see what something is worth today. He paused. The smart ones ask what it might be worth tomorrow. The reporter nodded. Walter pointed toward the ground. Sometimes treasure doesn't look like treasure. Then he added one final sentence that became famous throughout Texas. The world rewards people who pay attention when everyone else is in a hurry. And in the case of a forgotten field sold for $900. Those words turned out to be worth exactly $1 billion.